So NASA is very dangerous. You must have heard this statement somewhere. But the story that I have brought for you today, you will be able to know why NASA is so dangerous. So this is the story of a man who used to do his work in NASA with all his heart, but suddenly one day his heart comes on a girl. But one day, due to a space mission, that man has to leave his father on Earth and go to space. But during that time he finds out why NASA is so dangerous. And if you also want to know why NASA is so dangerous, then I am sure you will have a lot of fun watching this story. So at the beginning of the story, we see a man named John in a spaceship, who just woke up after completing his 90-day hypersleep, and then he somehow sits on a chair while taking care of himself. At this time, he was having some strange visions of his past, and it was not at all difficult to guess this by looking at his condition, that due to this hypersleep, it is having a very deep effect on his mind and he is slowly forgetting all his memories. And all this was actually happening to him because before sending him to hypersleep, he was given a very dangerous drug due to which he used to sleep continuously for 3 months. John was actually going to Saturn with his 2 companions Frank and his companion Ness, and after landing them on the moon of Saturn, i.e. Titan, they had to take a lot of resources from there and come back to Earth. But because they did not have so much fuel that they could go directly to Titan, so they had made a strategy according to which they were going to go to Jupiter first, and then using its gravity, they were going to launch their spaceship towards Titan like a slingshot. We can also see Frank ahead because he himself came out of his hypersleep, and now he comes to John and starts talking to him. Now after talking for a while, they go to the monitor room, where after going there, they started checking all the messages from Earth. Then they get a message from NASA, in which NASA's director was congratulating them because they had reached very close to their destination. But so far he has not received any message from John's father, and John gets very worried about this because now he did not know whether his father was in the police station or not. Then John, being worried there, starts thinking about his father Joe, whom he met during a meeting at NASA's headquarters, and as soon as he saw him, John fell in love with him. But yes, it is also true that we cannot understand everyone's fate like our own fate. John's fate is very good in this matter because somewhere or the other, whoever likes him very much, and we are in the same situation as Akshay Kumar that we do not want what we want, and who wants what we want. Now we see John in the present time because he was recording a video to prove that he was alive, and after recording it, he was going to go back to hypersleep with his companions. Because now he had to travel for 9 months more so that he could reach Titan Grabber. When John goes to hypersleep, he was still thinking about Joey, with whom the scene goes back to the past, where we see that everyone was being told about this mission that they have to reach the moon of Saturn in some way. And there Joey himself gave him a complete line while talking to John, and also told his number. Anyway, after watching this movie, I lost my faith in the NASA people because the Earth's resources were running out there, and these people were busy in their love affair. With which now the scene comes back to the present from there, where after 3 months, when John wakes up after finishing his hypersleep, he feels like before and somehow to activate himself, he starts cycling first. But even after that he was getting a strange sound and he was feeling that apart from him, Joey is also present in the same spaceship. That's why he goes to the nearby place and sees, but he doesn't see anyone there. But suddenly there was turbulence in the spaceship, which made John more nervous. And as soon as he looks up after a while, a piece of the spaceship comes on his face, which makes John unconscious. And after a while, when John opens his eyes, there were Frank and Nash in front of him, who advise him not to do it cheaply and get back to their work. And because John wanted to know how that piece of the spaceship fell on him, that's why he goes into that small place from where that piece of the spaceship had fallen. When John goes inside, he finds out that all the wires lying there were completely burnt, and he does not understand the reason. Well, now after coming down, John starts remembering his father Joey again, and then we can see through a flash that John and Joey had come very close to each other after that party, and they had started loving each other a lot. And despite that, they had decided that their love would never come in the middle of their work. Now we see that due to the turbulence in the spaceship, something bad had happened in the spaceship, about which when Frank and Nash find out, they both start getting very worried. But Frank had decided that he would not abort this mission at any cost. That's why Frank goes there by motivating John and Nash a little bit. But because of all these things, Nash was 64 years old, and he was also very scared. That's why he had decided that the next time he goes into hypersleep, he will wake up 12 hours earlier and turn the spaceship towards Earth. But when they were talking about it, Then suddenly Frank calls them to him because somewhere he had understood that which stormy idea was cooking in the kitchen of Nash's evil mind. Now he warns them not to do all this and goes away from there. Even after his departure, Nash wanted to do what he had decided, but there John also tries to explain to him that they should not do this and should complete this mission together. And to convince himself, Nash tells John a story according to which a lot of people had gone to do research in Antarctica at one time, and their captain wanted to go into a hole at any cost. They were very scared to go there, but their captain took them to the gunpoint and pointed them towards going into that hole. But they clearly refused to let their captain go to that place. After a while, when none of their contacts went to the NASA people immediately sent their other team to that place. After going there, they found a lot of people's dead bodies with bullet marks on their heads, but they did not have the captain's dead body and the captain was missing from there. Nash just wanted to explain this to John that the captain is actually very stubborn, and he can also take the life of his team member just to complete the mission. But John still does not pay attention to Nash's words at all and quietly goes to sleep in hypersleep. With which once again John and his partner Zoe's fatherhood is shown in the album, where they both loved each other very much and were ready to live with each other, but they always paid more attention to their work. Now, in the same way, John, who was lost in the memories of John's father, spends 90 days and it was time to wake up from his hypersleep. But this time too, as soon as he wakes up, he starts having strange dreams and now he also started feeling that his father is present in the spaceship with him. Even though Nash refused John, he gave him a place 12 hours earlier and he starts telling him about his plan. But now John does not listen to him and tells him that he is thinking about his father, and he feels that his father is present in the spaceship with him. Now, after listening to his words, Nash tells him lovingly that if he agrees to his words, then after a while they will reach the Earth again, after which John could live with his father. Till now, while completing his journey, he had reached the Jupiter planet, from where he was going to send his spaceship to the moon of the Saturn planet by using the gravity of Jupiter. But for now, Nash's plan was that he would not launch his spaceship towards Titan with the help of a computer, and would launch it towards Earth so that he could reach Earth as soon as possible. But in the meantime, his captain comes there, who had heard all his words and now he starts getting angry at both of them. Now, no matter how big of a fool they are, but because they could not ignore their captain's words, so they start following the captain's words. After a while, the captain comes straight and starts talking to John, and he also knew that John has hallucinations after waking up and he feels that Joy is in the spaceship with him. That's why he reduces the dose of that medicine for John, which was given to him while going to hypersleep so that he could sleep for 90 days. Now his spaceship was completely ready after a while that he could use the gravity of Jupiter and push himself towards Titan. Then John goes to complete that work, but at the same time he starts hallucinating that he has fallen out of space and he is going to die. John was very scared of this, and for now he somehow manages himself and completes his work. Now because his mission was almost complete, and he just had to wait for 2 to 3 more hypersleeps after which he was going to reach Titan. That's why these people get busy with their other work. John checks all the recordings again, but he still doesn't get his father's message this time. At that time, there was only one thing going on in John's mind: that we lived on your promise, this life is a lie, we would have died of happiness if it was Sunday. John doesn't get his father's message for now, but he was getting some signals from a nearby place, about which he goes and tells Frank immediately. But Frank thinks that all this is John's hallucination, so he doesn't pay any attention to what he says. John goes back to his hypersleep, and we have to see his memories again. During which we find out that actually Joy herself had applied to come to this space mission, but she was not selected and only John was selected. But because John was going to space alone and Joy doesn't know whether her father was in the station or not, so she starts refusing him not to go to the space mission. But because they had already decided that their work is first, so John doesn't listen to her. Because of which Joy had stopped talking to John, but despite that, John still remembered her a lot. So at the present time when John's eyes open again, Joy's hallucination was in front of him again. But he was able to go and talk to him. In the meantime, Frank reaches there and somehow makes John sit in a place while taking care of him. Until now, Frank had also found out that John is being harassed by his father a lot. After knowing this, John gets very angry at Ness because he had only told Ness this and then in anger to talk about it, John goes to Ness, but Ness answers him. After listening to him, John himself had also lost his mind. Then we go and get to know from Ness that the medicine that was being given to them while sending them to the hypersleep, the effect of that medicine was so bad on Ness's mind that he forgot his name. And that's why it was very difficult for Ness to remember that John can see his father here. Then John gets very upset here because Ness started crying very hard there because he had to do something and go back to Earth so that he could feel normal again. Then John somehow takes care of Ness and starts talking to him. In the meantime, Captain Frank calls them to him, and we get to know from Captain Frank that it is very difficult for them to reach the moon of the Saturn planet. And this was because one of John or Ness had an argument with the computer, so their spaceship got lost on its way. After knowing this, the two are very shocked because none of them remembered anything about it. Then Captain Frank gets very angry at the two of them, and he takes out his gun out of anger. He was trying to scare the two of them so that the two of them tell the truth, but none of them are ready to accept that they have had an argument with the computer. Then Frank was getting very angry this time, and he had decided that this time he would send them to hypersleep himself so that none of them could have any kind of argument with their machine. Frank first tells John to go to hypersleep, and in the meantime we see that John also goes to hypersleep quietly, and lies down in his machine. First of all, he is given the medicine with which he was going to reach hypersleep. But as soon as the injection is given to him, John's eyes turn outwards, where he sees that Frank had attacked Ness in anger because Frank had an idea that it was not anyone else but Ness who had had an argument with the computer. Now after seeing this scenario with his own eyes, John's eyes were wide open and he wanted to help Ness at any cost. He tries to get out of his machine but because by that time he had been injected to send him to hypersleep, so John could not get out of the machine and goes to hypersleep. Now after reaching the meeting room of the injection, John once again reached in front of his father, where he was fighting with his father because at any cost he wanted to go on this mission. But Zoe wanted John to leave her and not go on this mission alone, and then there is a lot of argument between the two of them, after which they both stop talking to each other, and John quietly comes on this mission. After a while we see in present time that after 90 days John's eyes are open again, and he is awake from sleep again. Now Ness's condition was still very bad and he was having various hallucinations. Then we see that John somehow manages to find Ness in the whole spaceship because he felt that at least Frank would not have killed Ness. But despite looking for a lot, neither John sees Frank nor Ness. After a while Frank comes in front of him, who still had a gun in his hand, and John was very scared after seeing him. John was trying to find out what Frank did to Ness while talking to Frank all the time at that time, but Frank does not answer him and starts talking to John while turning his words around. Frank also knew about this that Ness had told John a story about Antarctica, and then we come to know from Frank's words that the story that Ness had told John was completely wrong. Actually, when the team of those scientists saw that hole in Antarctica and their captain had forced them to go inside the hole and none of them went inside, then the captain himself took the gun and went inside the hole. But despite spending a lot of time, their captain did not come out because after going into the hole, he died for some reason. After knowing about this, the rest of the team members were very upset because they could not contact their headquarters without the captain. And that's why later when the rest of the team members realized that they could not contact the headquarters without their captain and their death was decided here, they decided that they would shoot themselves and die. That's why all of them had shot themselves in the head, and that's why they had bullet marks on their bodies. And now after knowing this, John is even more shocked and he does not understand whether Ness had told him the right story or the captain is telling him the right story. Now you have to tell me in the comments section what you think about this. But at the present time, John does not pay attention to all these things and goes straight to his work so that he can divert his mind a little. And while doing his work, suddenly John's hand starts to hurt a lot and his hand starts to swell a lot. Which after seeing John's torn 4 to 64, because he had already lost his father and now if he had lost his hand, how would he have done all the other important work in his life? But the next moment his hand becomes the same as before and then John realizes that he was also imagining this thing like his father, that something has happened to his hand. For now, John goes straight to Captain Frank in fear and asks him about Ness again. Then we get to know from the words of Captain Frank that there was never a man named Frank or Ness on the ship. Ever since John has come on this mission, he has been doing all the work alone, and he had come on this mission alone. After knowing this, John is very shocked because he was not understanding that who were the people he was seeing in front of him for a long time. And then we get to know the real thing that in fact, after breaking up with Zoe, John started to feel so lonely that even after coming on the space mission, he used to think about Zoe and he felt that Zoe or his team members had come with him. And to avoid that loneliness, his mind had made John and Nessa's imagination in front of him so that John would not feel alone and keep talking to them. After knowing this, John did not believe this at all and he immediately starts fighting with Frank there. Meanwhile, we see Frank who kills John very badly and John was also killing him very badly. Then John somehow goes to the main computer while making Frank unconscious, and after going there, when he sees all the CCTV footage, he finds out that ever since his spaceship started running, he was alone in the spaceship and he used to talk to me. And then John also finds out that the Franks and Ness who always stayed in front of him were part of his name, and it was clear that John's full name was John Frank Ness. And now after knowing this, all the elephants and horses of John's mind fly away, and he does not understand how to get back to Earth. Then John goes to the radio room while being worried there, and from there he starts trying to contact the Earth. Then on the other hand, he hears Zoe's voice, which tells him while talking to him that John is not actually in space. And all these things that were happening with John till now was just an experiment, and the NASA people deliberately brought Zoe to him so that John starts loving her, and when she is suddenly separated, the NASA people can calculate that after being away from one person's favorite person, what effect it has on the other person's mind. And the real thing was that John was never sent on a space mission. He was sent to a bunker which was 1,000 feet below the ground, and that John was being made to feel as if he was in a spaceship and his spaceship was going towards the moon of Saturn planet. Now, this experiment was going to end a long time ago, due to which John's mind did not have much effect. But suddenly there was a very big earthquake at that place where that bunker was present in which John was kept. That's why the NASA people could not get him out yet. But in a little while, the NASA people were going to reach the place where John was trapped, and John was going to be taken out of there. After knowing this, John is very happy and immediately starts moving towards the gate of his spaceship so that he can get out of there. Then suddenly a prank comes in front of John again, which prevents him from opening the gate of the spaceship. Because according to the prank, John was really on a space mission and he was going towards the moon of Saturn planet, i.e. towards the Titan. But this time John was going out of the spaceship at the behest of his father, so he does not listen to the prank at all. Because he had made the biggest mistake by coming to this place without listening to his father. Now as soon as John opens the door of the spaceship and goes out, he sees that his father was absolutely right and he was under the ground. There were a lot of big stairs where some construction workers were coming down so that they could take John with them and go out. Then John himself starts climbing the stairs with courage. But suddenly his breath stops and the whole atmosphere around him changes. Then we can see that in fact John was lost somewhere in space because he had opened the door of his spaceship and he had reached space. And it was clear that this time John was trying to listen to his father, and he lost his life. In fact, he had never spoken to his father. Whatever scenario he was seeing talking to his father was just a hallucination of his mind. And that is a very famous dialogue that if you want to completely destroy a person, then get him used to only two things. First of love and the second of addiction. The person will be destroyed on his own. Now where did you hear this dialogue? Do tell us about it in the comments section. By the way, wherever you have heard it, it is the truth. Anyway, do tell us about what you have to say about this story in the comments section. I say goodbye to you because this story ends here, and I hope you liked my explanation. If you liked the explanation, then subscribe to the channel and select on the bell notification call and like the video. I will keep bringing such more interesting explanation videos. Till then, tada and goodbye.